Hi, I'm Susan from Sunrise Quilt Studio, and I am just back from a couple of weeks of traveling and getting ready to put a new quilt on the machine. Now this is the Periwinkle Quilt, and you've probably seen some of my other videos where I've been piecing this block on some of my vintage machines. And I have the top all together, except I need to put an outer border on it yet, and once I get that done, then I'll be putting it on the machine. First thing I thought of was feathers, and I decided to do a spin feather. So that is going around in a circle, in a spiral, as many times as you want, swinging up, and I decided to do the curl on the feather, every other feather. Let me switch markers. There we go, that's better. And you can make these as small or as large as you like. I'm going to make them fairly large here to kind of speed up the time. And it's just every other feather has a little curl in it. And that helps break up some of the backtracking that you have to do. You don't have to do quite as much this way. So there you have a spin feather. Okay, I want to do some continuous curve to put some petals on the inside of the block. Now I can leave it like that, but I'm going to go ahead and continuous curve on the outside. Now this goes really fast if you're freehanding it. If you're using templates, it slows you down a little, but you know, whatever works best for you is what you should do. Okay, there's a couple of different designs that we could use to fill this up, or you could just leave it as it is. But I'll show you some of the designs that I worked on last night. This is a Greek key design. We can do swirls, and put as many or as few in there as you like. And it's a small area, so if you backtrack too many times, or quite a few times, you only have room for about 4. But that also works. Another thing is pebbles. Pebbles are very pretty, give you a lot of texture. I personally don't like quilting them because the motion gets my whole back moving, and then I wind up in pain because I do have some pretty severe back problems. So I don't do a lot of pebbles. I limit the number of pebbles that I'll do in a project. And if I did this in every block, that would be a lot of pebbles, and that would be more than what my back is going to be able to tolerate. And then you could just do a meander. And there's all different kinds of meanders. This is just a free-form meander. Okay, if we want to do feathers, but we want to do them a little different, let's go here. I'm going to make a little pearl and then come down and do feathers. These are just the normal formal feather. And come down again and do the other side. And make those as small or as large as you like. And then when you get all of those put together, it's really pretty. Now if you want to do something a little more modern with some linear lines, some straight lines, let's look at splitting quilting here. We're going to just quilt across from point to point, and then on half of the section we'll ditch over and do parallel lines to what we've already quilted, and do that on 2 sides. And then in this section we're going to go in the opposite direction. We're going to do parallel lines here, and I'm just going to put in 2. And another thing I came up with is kind of a partial feather. I'm going to see if I can get this one done here. I'm working upside down. That's always difficult for me. Here we go. And we're just going to put a few feathers on this one. And let me do this one here. I can control this one a little bit better. I want to swing way around. A little pearl. You can also double this up and then do your feather. Like that. And then do that the same on the other two sides. There we go. Okay, so what I'm doing is I am meeting this stitching with the seam, coming up, filling the tip, coming back down, hitting the seam, and now this stitching, I want it to meet this stitching line, swing out and come back. And this gives an inner petal effect to your design. So you can see that. And that would go really fast and still have a nice look in your quilt. Okay, let's try a different feather. We're going to go ahead and do the spin feather. But on this one, I'm going to make a hook and I'm going to go back and keep fairly close. This is backtracking, or quilting your feathers without backtracking. So it looks like you've outlined your feathers, which actually you have. Another thing you could do is when you're coming back down, you could make them a little lacy. By doing a little scallop edge on them. So you get a look like that. You could also do the hook feather with the swirl. And then you can make this small and the return big. However you like your feathers. Okay, now we're on our background fabric, and let's do the continuous curve on that too. And that would be, this one I'm going to go wide again. And just fill up the space. There you go. That went really fast. Okay, let's try something a little more complex. Okay, we're going to go 3 curves on each one. And you can make these as steep as you like. This will give it kind of a spiderweb look, but I'm going to do something different in the center. We're going to do the continuous curve in the center. So we'll do this to fill it up. And if you probably can hear, I am multitasking. I'm doing laundry while I'm filming, so you can hear my washer draining in the background. There we go. Okay, let's try a feather. This is pretty big space, so I think a feather wreath would work well in here. So I'm going to make me a center, and then I'm going to use a couple of templates here. I'm going to double up my spine. Now this will give me an idea, but this will be off a little bit because when I get my hopping foot up here, this will be 1/4 of an inch larger than what this is. But I know that, so it's not really going to throw me off too badly. So here we go. So let's do our feathers to start. And I'm just going to do a formal feather. I'm making these pretty fat to speed up time here. And then on the outside, we'll do the same thing. I'm going to show you 2 different ways. This didn't work the way I was thinking I was going to do it. So we're going to do this feather here. This will give you 2 completely different feathers as opposed to 1 feather. And I'll show you what I did here in a minute. Let me get around here. And I think you can probably see what I mean by 2 different feathers. The feather in the center is hooked to the center ring instead of to the middle ring. So if I want this to look like, so it looks like 2 feathers. So if I want it to look like 1 feather, I'm going to base the feather off of this ring here instead of this one. So these feathers would need to go this direction. And this will look like 1 feather with 1 spine as opposed to 2 feathers with 2 spines. And then for this section here, you could fill this in with pebbles. You could do a ribbon candy. You could do herringbone. Anything small that you want to. I think the pebbles look really good, and I like ribbon candy. I'm not too fond of that one. But if you want to do something heirloom type, there's all different kinds of things that you can do. And I always think of feathers. And I'm going to have these feathers, I'm going to look at this section. So I'm going to be dividing this quilt up, this block up into quarters. And I am going to do a feather here. And I can come back down and do the feathers here. And I do have this quilt, it's laying in quarters. I've got it folded in quarters, so I'm coming over a bunch of seams here underneath here that are kind of bumping me around a little bit. But if you do that in all 4 quarters, you're going to get a really pretty feather look. Now if you want to just use this section and quilt it as just one piece and ignore all the piecing in it, you don't want to worry about the seams. Let me start up here. Let's do a swirl in combination with some pebbles. And I'm going to do a couple of swirls. And I put another one in here. And now I'm going to throw in some pebbles. And just make a little pool of pebbles here. And then throw in another swirl. Another swirl here. And then maybe some more pebbles. And you can use these pebbles to move around in your quilt. Like I want to come over here and I want to put in another swirl. come back and finish up my pebbles. And you can combine other things here. If you've got, we've got this feather here, or this swirl here, we could make it into a feather. Or let me start over. Do a swirl. Come back around and throw some feathers on it. And then we could come in and do another swirl. And then we could add some pebbles. Just combine some elements that you like. Something like that. And this will look really nice in there. This is a little denser quilting, but it's very pretty. Okay, that's about all I have. I hope this gave you some ideas on what you could do if you have a hummingbird quilt or a periwinkle quilt, or if you just want some ideas for some unique shapes in your quilt, like these shapes here. And this is an octagon type shape. So you can treat this as you would a circle, or this as you would a star.
Thanks for watching. For more quilting ideas, click on the video links. And to keep up with my newest projects, click on the subscribe button. I hope to see you again soon.